Do you want to start building your own LEGO modulars, like the police station, assembly square, or this custom one I did, but you don't know where to begin? In this video, I'll show you 5 easy steps to help you transform your buildings from this to this. This YouTube channel was created 17 years ago. But long before that, in 2001, I got my first LEGO set. It was the Hogwarts Castle. But not this one. Or this. And also not this. I mean this one. The original one. See, I loved Harry Potter. And if I remember correct, my parents got me this for my birthday. But a couple years later, I had developed other hobbies and did the worst thing a LEGO fan can do. I gave away all of my old LEGO to some random kid down the street. But then a couple years passed and out of the blue, I got another LEGO set for my birthday, a red Ferrari this time. Because I was a little older at this point, I wanted more than just building from instructions, and I went on to create my own designs. A Nintendo DS, a mini bike, some cars, and a bunch more. Fast forward to now, I have almost 100,000 subscribers and most of my videos are custom builds. I like to think I know a bit about building without instructions. So let's dive into that. This is my LEGO city. I started it a couple months ago, but as you can see, it still needs a lot of work. I have 16 base plates reserved for buildings, and the full modular lineup from LEGO has 19. So, I could just go out and use these. The only problem is, most of them are retired and you cannot get them for retail prices anymore. If you want one of these, you'll be spending a ton of money. And even the current modulars come at a hefty price. So, I have to come up with a different way to fill my city. That's why I'm taking you through my process of planning, designing, and building my own LEGO modular. And when it's finished, I'll tell you exactly how much I spend on this to see if it's actually worth doing it yourself. Step 1 would be to make a plan. If you have little to no experience building your own creations, it's better not to start with an entire modular. When you dive into a huge build, you might run out of parts quickly. Or worse, run out of motivation. This happens to me quite a lot actually. I'm very much a perfectionist, and if it's not going the way I want, I tend to give up too quickly. It's easier to practice and learn if you stick to smaller builds early on. You can get a feeling for what pieces and colors can go together well, and you discover building techniques that you might have never thought of if you started on a bigger project first. Inspiration is everywhere. When you're at a desk, pick up a random object and try to visualize how that would come together if it was made out of LEGO. You can do this with anything. If you're on a couch, build the lamp that's in a corner of the room, or you could go outside to look at cars, animals, and trees, for example. I made a plan for myself as well. Since I'm building an entire LEGO city, I want to fill it up with custom modulars. So far, I've added 2 buildings to the city, but both of them are official LEGO sets. So how do you start making custom ones? That all starts with a design. I'm gonna add a town hall to my city, but that's quite a big project. So before we commit to this, let's start with something a little smaller. This brings us to step 2, which, you might have guessed, is start with a smaller project. This is the assembly square. As you can see, it's only 1.5 base plate in size. I want to extend it so it fills up the extra space. But I cannot just make it longer. With how it's placed in my city, it needs a nice looking side as well. I don't have a huge LEGO collection or budget yet, but there's an easy way to solve this. This is Bricklink Studio, a free program you can use to build any LEGO set you'd like. It has pretty much every piece you'd need. I use this all the time to plan and design custom builds. Because I've been planning out my city digitally, I make studio files for every single modular building. It took me a lot of time to build all of these, but they're so useful to have. So I opened the assembly square in Studio and started working. The bottom floor is the easiest, since you can use it to figure out the footprint of the entire building. Just like the front, it needs a sidewalk for minifigures to go about their day. And now we know how big it should be, we can start completing the rest of the structure. Some big windows, arches, the awnings, and some other bricks and pieces fill out this section perfectly. To finish off this floor, we also want to repeat the interior of the original. As you can see, Studio is a great way to design something for yourself. You don't need to have a huge collection, and you can get right into building. Over on my Discord server, YouTube members can get access to all my studio files. And even if you're not a member, you can still join. I set it up as a way to connect with others on anything LEGO. It's a safe space to share your thoughts and show others your creations. Feel free to take a look. I'll have a link to it in the description below. Now that we've come up with a design for this, it's time to gather the parts and put everything together. This is obviously not a full custom building, but we'll get to that in a bit. Because I first made a digital version of the assembly square, we can reference that for the actual build. One of the great things about Studio is being able to make custom instructions. It takes some fiddling around, but it's definitely worth trying. I'll also have instructions available for the custom modular I'm making later in this video. Just like the Studio files, the instructions will be available to YouTube members over on Discord. So if that's something you're interested in, consider joining. Alright, after about an hour of building, we have the ground floor finished. As you can see, the windows wrap around the side and it's as close to the original as possible. The inside is also finished, with another bench and some more tables. With this first floor done, I can continue building the second and third floor. They're pretty much copies of each other, except for the interior. But seeing I want to revisit the interiors at a later time, we'll keep them plain for now. Lastly, we need to extend the roof. And there we go! We've modified the assembly square to fit onto 2 base plates. The design on this side is quite plain and simple, but I think it looks nice. As you can see, I didn't continue the design of the front of the building, but instead I made a wall with some windows. In hindsight, I think it might have actually looked better if I did continue the design of the front, but that's okay. As Bob Ross would say,
we don't make mistakes, we have happy accidents.
Just write these kind of things down and use them in your next build. Speaking of next build, I already have a plan, but I didn't tell you all of it yet. This is a miniature version of our Lego city. It works great to plan bigger projects like this. These bricks in the back is where the city hall is supposed to go, but next to it, I want a police station. And this actually introduces step 3, take inspiration from other buildings. In order to make the 2 buildings look cohesive, let's build the police station first. When it's finished and we can take a closer look at it, I can decide on colors and building techniques that I want to use. They play a huge role in whatever you want to create. If you decide to build a custom Ferrari, for example, it doesn't really make sense to build it in bright pink. Even if the final build doesn't turn out to be an exact copy, someone else will immediately recognize it as a Ferrari if it's red. If you've seen my other city videos, you know that I have a little story going on in the city. When I started, I found that one of the most important things in the Lego city is storytelling. I introduced 2 characters so far. This is Victor, the bad guy. He lives in a Sanctum Sanctorum and basically runs the city. And then there's Tony, the taxi driver. He is working for Victor to pay off his debts to him. With the town hall and police station being added today, we can also introduce 2 new characters. The first being Adrian Walker, police chief of Creston, which is my city. As with all official Lego modulars, the minifigures come in yellow. But because I want it to be a bit more realistic, I'm taking the head and hands from this other minifigure. Chief Walker is trying to get a grip on Victor's illegal activities, but he's not really succeeding. The second character we're adding is Mayor Olivia Hayes. She is actually a minifigure from the Office set, Angela to be specific, just with a different hairpiece. Victor managed to get some dirt on her years ago, so she's kind of forced to go along with a lot of Victor's plans. Luckily, the police station is now finished and the chief can keep an eye on Victor. The station has an old grand thing going on, which I really like. It's mostly built using tan pieces and it has some nice accents with the dark tan piles on the corners. The purple of the donut shop and the green of the jail is a nice contrast with the rest of the build. I want the town hall to feel the same way, so I did some research. The Netherlands has a lot of buildings with a similar style, but I'm particularly interested in town halls, since that's what I'm building today. The one in The Hague, where I live, looks way too futuristic, but I also found these 2. They're quite similar, but I'm leaning a bit more towards the city hall in Rotterdam. I feel like the balance between windows and stone is a bit better, and I specifically like the arches in the front. So, how do we go from this picture to a Lego building? I started out with a quick sketch until I got something that made sense to me. We only have 2 base plates to work with, so it cannot be too big. These parts are a little less white, but I kept the rest pretty similar. I can definitely use tan as the base, but if you look closely, you can see some variation in color. Dark tan is perfect for this. Then I tried visualizing the individual elements of the building. We can see some balconies that I can use regular fence pieces for, and there are 4 statues in the front that I can use minifigures for. In general, most of the shapes seem very doable. Lego makes a ton of different arches, the windows are similar to these on the assembly square, and the steps out front seem quite easy too. The only thing I'm not really sure about is the roof. I know Lego makes a ton of different slope pieces I can use, but I just don't have a lot of experience with that yet. What I do have experience with though, is the roof on the police station. Because, well, I just built it. For now, I'll just use the exact same design. I can always change it in the future. Okay, now we need to figure out what parts we need, which is step 4. I've recently sorted all of my Lego, so I know what parts I already have. Ignoring the color for now, I can dig into my collection and build a couple of test pieces. If you don't have a lot of Lego, or you want to use the right colors right away, just open up Studio again to build it there. As an example, this is the front with the balcony and the windows in Studio. And this is the version I built with the parts I already have. Now the biggest difference between both of these is obviously digital versus physical. You can experiment a lot more with a digital version because you don't actually need to have the parts on hand. But sometimes it's nicer to build with the parts straight from your inventory. You can figure out if the building techniques you want to use actually work, and you get a better feeling for how certain parts go together. Building with the parts you have actually brings another benefit, since you tend to get more creative with part usage. You don't have the arch you need for the front of the building, just use 2 other pieces to get similar results. In Studio, you would just go for the first part that comes to mind. So, in a way, it's a bit lazier to build like this. After switching between Studio and my existing collection for a while, I made a list and ordered a bunch of pieces. This brings us to the last step in the process. Just start building. With 2 mills plates as a base, I laid out the floor plan. The foundation is dark gray, which is a nice contrast to the tan building. After putting down 2 layers of bricks, I could work on a little square out front. During the building process, I also used dark gray for this, but looking at it now, I might change that to light gray later on. All the sidewalks in my cities are light gray, so I think it might look better. But those are all minor things. Since details of storytelling could be a 2-hour video in and of itself, I will only cover the outside and main structure for now. Just know that you can literally do anything you'd like with it. I, for example, plan on adding an art gallery, a library, and an office for the mayor later on. And I would like the outside of the building to have some small scenes too. With all the foundations finished, I could finally start on the actual building itself. As you can see, I have an assortment of different bricks and plates I use for the outside walls. A good thing to keep in mind while building is that 1 brick equals 3 plates. If you want to add a feature that has a plate connection, just make sure to even it out with the right amount of plates elsewhere. Check out these windows, for example. They're quite simple and they don't require much. If we look at the building I'm basing this modular off of, you'll notice it's relatively flat. One thing I like to do to create a bit more depth is use these 1x2 modified plates on top and below the windows. It's kind of like a little windowsill and it's super easy to implement anywhere. But remember, 3 plates equals 1 brick, so you gotta make sure to equal it out. I simply used a bunch of 1x4s on top of the windows to tie everything together. For the walls, I like to mix things up a bit. You might have noticed that I don't just use standard 1x bricks for this. I actually have a big variety of different types. Some examples are these 1x2 and 1x4 masonry bricks, 1x1 round bricks, some bricks with little designs on them, and a collection of snot bricks. I don't think snot is the official term, but it stands for studs not on top, meaning that they also have studs on the sides. I have these headlight bricks with a little ledge on the bottom, these bricks with studs on 2 sides, and these ones that just have them on 1 side. What these do is allow you to add Lego pieces going in a different direction than the standard straight up. If you're building walls, they should almost never be just flat and straight because that looks quite boring. Try to randomly use different parts to create a bit of detailing variation. You don't have to go overboard with it, but usually a little goes a long way. Okay, to finish up this first floor, I'm adding tiles to the top of the walls. Looking at an existing modular, you'll see the top of the walls are tiled off with the exception of some studs here and there. This is done to open up the building and look inside, while also making sure the upper floors don't just fall off. They're generally placed around corners or in the middle of the longer walls, and you want to space them out enough so they don't attach to the upper floors too strongly. Now, let's continue with the second floor. A lot of modulars will use a different color for this row of plate and tiles. I'm not sure why, but it could just be as simple as showing where the new floor starts. Using a dark tan layer of plates for the next level kinda gets similar results. The floor itself was actually pretty simple. Just make sure you get the right sizes of plates and base plates and you'll be good to go. For the rest of this floor, I generally use the same techniques as the floor below, so nothing new there. The only major difference you'll see is the balcony. For the statues, I simply used gray minifigures that I gave some accessories to. I opted for a 2x3 inverted slope piece to make it seem like they're floating a bit. Remember how I said snot bricks are used to add parts in different directions? This is a great example of that. I used 1x4 snot bricks to create these sort of mini balconies that the original building also has. I use snob bricks in the wall, as well as below the fence piece, and there are no exposed studs anywhere around it. Continuing with the roof, you simply want to make another floor structure before you can start with the actual design of it. The police station serves as the perfect inspiration since it's going right up against it. The colors of both buildings are similar, and I feel like a town hall and police station could belong together. Okay, seeing the building is done for now, we can finally place it in the city, right next to the police station. And now, the important question. Is it worth it to design your own modular building? Or are you better off just buying the existing lineup from Lego? I figured out what parts I actually used and how much they cost. There are currently 3,345 parts in this build, and I spent a total of €317.21. Most Lego modulars are 1 or 1.5 base plates wide, and mine is 2. So you could say that makes it worth designing and building your own. Or is it? Every Lego modular comes with a bunch of extra builds, minifigures and details, and mine obviously doesn't have any of that. But at the end of the day, it's not just about the price, it's more about the entire project. I definitely had a lot of fun doing it. So whether it's actually worth it is up to you, I suppose. Do you enjoy letting your creativity flow and coming up with your own designs? Then I'd say go for it. But if you prefer just building from instructions, I would probably save yourself a lot of headache. Even just sourcing all the parts for the cheapest price took a lot of time. In fact, I did so much research, I could probably do an entire video on it. Now, if you want to know the best way to sort your Lego in preparation for your own project, this video should be great for you.